World building for tabletop role-playing games does not have to be a lonely process. You can bring your players into it and get them involved in creating a world together. Hey fellow game masters, I'm Richard Quiner and welcome back to the Daily D20, your daily dose of all things tabletop role-playing games, helping you build your world and master your game. If you like what you see on the channel, I invite you to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you can get notified when I upload new videos every day. Everyone who's been a game master for any length of time knows that it can be kind of a lonely life. You're not able to talk about the stories with your players, and you don't really want to talk about it with other people who might play in your game because you might want to use the same story with them as well. So you're just kind of sitting there keeping your story in place. Maybe you go on the forums and find some other DMs that you can vent to and talk to, but really it's a very solitary existence as a game master. But when it comes to world building and creating a world for your players to inhabit, you don't have to do this alone, and if you have some players who are into it, you can use them to create some fantastic worlds that they have ownership in and you just use in your game. So as I mentioned last week, for Workshop Wednesdays, I'm going to be sharing with you what I've been doing to help build my world and build my kind of campaign setting along with my players. And this week, that's what I kind of focused on, is getting my players involved, finding out stuff from them that I could use in my world. And what I found was there's some really cool creative stuff out there that I didn't even think about, that when I gave my players the chance, they really outshined me. So just as a preface, the players that I'm working with on this project don't really know that I'm planning to make something and publish it yet. If they watch this video, this will be the first time they hear about that, or if they watched last week's, if they remembered the name of the world they're on, but I don't think we got in that in depth in our session. And yes, we've only played one game session. But after that session, over the next month, because we decided this is a monthly campaign, we're not doing a weekly thing, over the next month, they were blowing up my phone with text messages. Everyone was super excited. They went out, they bought minis. One guy got a nameplate and a life counter for some reason. They got a lot of stuff because they were just so excited to play the game, and we don't even play our second session for another couple days. So seeing the excitement that they had, I said, hey guys, send me a couple paragraphs of your character's backstory. And I stipulated on there, I said, don't look up anything about Dungeons and Dragons or any of the actual lore that's out there. I want to know what you come up with out of your own head. And that's what most of them did. I'm still missing a couple, and they're supposed to get back to me in the next day or so. But the ones that did respond did go ahead and send me 1 to 2 paragraphs of a character backstory. Now already, looking from the character backstories, I saw a lot of things in common. These people in real life had been friends for a very long time. They've known each other, and they had once played D&D like back when they were kids, I think. But now they're trying to get back into it again, and that's why they had reached out to me to come and run a game for them. But in their backstories, they did have some connections going through. Some of them had said, oh, we have this one characters in common through our 2 backstories. But I did notice one thing, they left out a lot of specifics. They didn't give me names of town. Most of them didn't even name their parents in their backstories. These little things that help build the world and add some detail, they left out. But they came up with some great backstories, all focused around their character. Then what I did was I took these backstories and I read through them, and I pulled out key points and key locations that I wanted to know more about. And for each player, I made a list. I sent them a list of about 5 to 10 questions each. Some, depending if they had a longer, more written history or more locations or things I was interested in, they had more questions. But I sent them a list of questions asking them, what was the name of this character? What was the name of this place? Where is the place you were born? These kind of questions that will help me build the world. It does fill in their character background, but for their characters moving forward, it might not come into play, but for me in building a world, I see that as a good opportunity. I also gave them the option that they did not have to answer all the questions. I said, answer as many as you would like, the rest I will fill in the blanks. And all of them answered all the questions. No one left any blanks for me to fill in, so I was pretty happy about that. But what I got back was several cities, I got back several trade routes, names of ships, names of NPCs, a whole lot of information that now, that stuff I don't have to worry about adding into the world, because now it's a part of it. All I have to do is keep track and not lose it. The other great thing about this is, since these guys are new to role-playing games and interested in the fantasy genre, they came up with some names that I would probably have never thought of. And these names in turn sparked my interest and my creativity in coming up with what these cities and locations were actually like. So what we actually ended up doing was building kind of hybrid worlds where it's part of the player's idea and part of my idea. So what we're going to go over now, I'm going to explain to you what I came up with, and then I'm going to just list off a whole bunch of stuff that the players gave me to work with that is now part of my new world. So the starting place, as I mentioned last week, I had a world. I named it Yindir, and that's how I decided it's going to be pronounced, Yindir, with Y-Y-D-A-E-R. But it's Yindir is how it's pronounced, and that's the world it's going to be. On that world, I put kind of an island country called Belmar, which is Dwarvish for under the mountain, and above that island country is a gigantic floating upside down mountain with a city built on top, and that place is called Felderin. On the island country that I have, there are different points where the floating island is actually anchored by gigantic chains, and one of those chains is called East Anchor, where a small town has popped up, and that was the starting location of our adventure, where the players met each other and began their adventures in this epic world that they're creating. That was all the world building I had done. I have some ideas of what can happen in Felderin, I have some ideas of what can happen on the island, but overall, it was a pretty basic world that I had built for my players. But let me tell you what else I got from this character backstories and the questions that I had asked them. I got the city of Icereach. Originally, it was a large city where a wood elf came from, but because it has a cool name, I decided it's actually built into a glacier, and its main export is ice. It sends ice all over the world, and it's been there for thousands of years because the glacier is just that huge. Next, what's created was Xanis. Now, Xanis is actually a dwarven city with the master blacksmiths of the world that have created intense metals that is able to withstand the brutal force of their barbarian nature, because everyone in that town is essentially a descendant of one of the roaming tribes of barbarians that might have been in my world at one point. And of course, the character who comes from there is a dwarf barbarian, so it makes sense. Another location I was given was Moirenthal. Now, I didn't know what Moirenthal was because they said it was the Dark Mountains and Moirenthal, but they did mention there's a wizard there, so I'm thinking there's a wizard hideout with the wizard doing some crazy machinations in Moirenthal. One of my characters has a pretty tragic backstory and loves apostrophes, so he came up with a town called Imkrath, which I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. I'll find out later when we play what he pronounced it as, but essentially this to me sounded like a scum and villainy kind of hive of slavers and traders, and not a very good place to be, where his character was essentially raised as a slave. But in a sharp contrast to that, that character did eventually go to another town called Hanlish, which is a capital of one of the central continents. I like to think of it as kind of a oasis of wealth in a desert of poverty around it, but it is a large, very big capital city that's main source of entertainment is the gladiator arenas, where, of course, my player was a gladiator at one point. Then, of course, you get the elves and their elven cities with crazy names like Ilranthir. I can't pronounce elven properly, so this one is essentially, it's a sea elf home. It's a large kingdom kind of under the sea. I like to picture it built on the side of a large kind of cliff that extends into the ocean, so where they can live kind of near the shore, but kind of watch over the water and their domain in the ocean. That is the home of one of the players, and he had to go actually to a convent that was nearby. Now, this convent called Anfallen actually sits near the ocean city of Ilranthir. I'll get that right one of these days. And at this convent, they have clerics that worship a new deity who, of course, I asked my player, I just said, what is the name of your deity? And they went above and beyond, and they gave me their deity of Jahan. Now, Jahan is actually a kraken that is ageless and timeless who has ascended to godhood somehow in this world. We haven't figured that part out yet, but we will eventually. But I thought that was a really neat idea that they actually worship a kraken monster. For me, the experience of getting my players invested and creating their own cities and towns was really eye-opening and really interesting to see the creativity that they had. And that's where I like you to get involved as well. Give me something to put in my new world. Could it be a city? Could it be a country? Could it be a person? A convent? A temple of some sort? Even a deity? I'm open to everything. Let me know in the comments below what you would add to this new world, and most likely I'll put it in there. If you've liked this video and found it helpful, please go ahead and leave a like, and of course subscribe and hit the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos every day. And of course, Game Masters, I've been Richard Quiner. Thank you for watching.